Let's name some things that are true that we observe that are maybe inconvenient or uncomfortable. Just by getting the official title of leader, you have more influence in the space. People will project things on you that they won't onto others. They will expect things from you they won't onto others. And when you tell somebody to do something or not, they're going to listen. Experience gives somebody power.
Right.
So I can go into a circling group that no one knows who I am, and very quickly people are going to defer to me because I have an experience, and I can abuse that. It's not an equal space. It's a relational practice, but we don't come in equals. We just don't.
You are now entering the container.
So the container is now open, and we have with us today Jordan Myska Allen, none other than. Sai and I have been going really deep over in Europe with our friends in SAS, and we've been scouring, listening to the information trickling in over the internet. And this theme of power dynamics has been coming up over and over again. This little keyword, power, and this idea of both power dynamics inside of the circling space, facilitator, participant, and then also, I think, power dynamics that maybe are being brought into the space. Sai cannot be on the call today. And so then there's also this interesting thing of the power dynamics of availability, and that's kind of interesting too. And then there's also yeah, as Sai really brought up for me a lot in this exploration so far that we've had off the pod, uh she really centers how power dynamics are something that you project yourself. So there's this way that someone's power over you is often just because you've agreed to them having that, actually. And so I want to, yeah, bring that side in here early on because Sai's not here to voice it. Um, yeah, and I think for context, that's about all I've got. Before handing it over to Jordan, I would just like to say thank you to our patrons. Patrons. They went to patreon.com/the container, and they make small monthly donations that keep all of this afloat. And now I'm bringing in the voice of Jordan to give us some perspectives. As someone who's created an incredible community with a lot of like infrastructure down in Austin around these relational practices, I imagine that you've actually worked in power a lot in these spaces, and so you're the guy to talk to, in my opinion, on this.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I really appreciate you reaching out and just kind of shot in the dark, like, hey, are you free really quickly? Because I really want to address this. Um, I would love to do as much grounding into any real specific questions you have. So it could be about sex and sleeping with students. It could be about yeah, gender. I don't know what they are. I'm tempted to be like, man, I don't know anything. What do I know? It's power. This is this is such a big topic. It's such a frame. It's so limited in ways like Sai is pointing out. And I think that that's, in some interesting way, me disowning power that I have, both historically, a ton of cool, epic, beautiful privileges that I think I've used really well, and sometimes abused without even knowing it. And then also, like you said, yeah, I now am the head of two companies, and so a lot of power flows through me. I create these training programs. I declare what relatefulness is and isn't, and of course, it's grown beyond me. But I have the largest voice, and yeah, with Uptrust, there's a lot of money. I've used this power to get money to hopefully make the world a better place. But yeah, I decide whether somebody gets fired or hired or all sorts of things. So on a very practical level, I've got power. And I think it's very important to own that and be honest and upfront about it.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, something I hear in that first move you're making is starting with what you can see as really true here.
Yeah,
Yeah. And the more I work into the relational arts, the more I'm like framing it as just like learning how to say what's actually true. And
exactly.
and everything else is kind of like keywords that might help you say what's true.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah, exactly. And
yeah.
so a classic example of this is people come into some sort of relational space and they're like, "Oh my God, I can say whatever I want." And they start saying like really mean, aggressive things. And they're like, "But that's true." And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, that is true. But what about like, do you actually care what people think of you? Do you want to be alone? Are you in touch with the truth of the impact? Are you in touch with the truth of if you speak Chinese and they speak English, does you're saying true things, but what does it matter, you know?"
Yeah.
So there's this kind of sense of like what's true, what we can include in what's true starts to expand to be more and more inclusive. And part
Mm.
of the challenge and skill that requires practice is like, holy crap, now I'm aware of millions of things happening in this moment that are true. Which ones do I choose?
Oh, okay. I'm getting like tingles right now. This feels like right on a spot that I think is really important for anyone listening who circles and feels these power dynamics, particularly with big leaders when they're in a circling space. Something I've heard in online discussions and personal discussions a lot lately are people who are concerned around what they consider an imbalance of vulnerability. And what you're naming is like something that I see a lot, and I felt when I first entered these spaces is that the invitation to be really truthful had me making moves of like being truthful in ways that were maybe less safe for others and for myself actually.
And
And
some of that
and
is the nature of the practice. It's not safe.
right.
We I mean, we are being open with ourselves and with each other, and we're taking the nature of vulnerability is if it's true vulnerability, is you don't know if you're going to be okay.
Right. Right, but also something that I notice here is that I think a lot of people get the implication that circling or like authentic relating is about being vulnerable.
Right.
Yeah, and something I notice in like when you're talking about yeah, you can say what's true, but like what's the impact on people or something? It's like also yeah, you can say what's true, like you can say something that's really fucking vulnerable right now, but there's actually you can circle your pants off without ever getting vulnerable. Like you just
Yeah.
say what's true and really here, and you don't have to make decisions where you're uncovering stuff that is feels scary for you. And I think a lot of people come into the practice and they see old timers being vulnerable or they see people really uncovering stuff and then they think they kind of get the implicate they it's like implied that that's part of the game. It's like, "Oh, we're being really vulnerable." And then when they feel higher up leaders not being vulnerable at all, they feel like, "Oh, wait, you told me to be really vulnerable. And now you're not vulnerable. And like now I've like shared all this and then you're like cold and distant." And that can feel like a power dynamic when actually it's like, well, no, yeah, it's actually this other thing. Like there's an unnamed implication in the space.
Yeah. So it has me want to like, let's name some things that are true that we observe that like are maybe inconvenient or uncomfortable. Like, um, just by just by getting the official title of leader, you have more influence in the space.
Yeah.
People will project things on you that they won't onto others. They will expect things from you they won't onto others. And when you tell somebody to do something or not, they're going to listen.
Yeah, right.
What's another thing? Like experience gives somebody power.
Right.
So I can go into a circling group that no one knows who I am, and like very quickly people are going to defer to me because I have an experience. The same way if I pick up my guitar and go to a jam, people are going to be like, "Damn, that guy's good," and I can abuse that.
Yeah.
I absolutely can abuse that. And to pretend like I'm like a crappy guitarist, it's not necessarily helpful. So yeah, what are some other things like that? Like
Hmm.
it's not an equal space. It's a relational practice, but we don't come in equals. We just don't.
Right.
Like what are some other uncomfortable? You might disagree, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I like this. There's stuff that I think you can get more interpretive around power dynamics, but are being brought in by people. So for instance, like easy ones are like class or like
yeah,
race or gender or like things that even if you personally don't agree with like an analysis that someone might have about how the power differential works, it actually, if it's inside someone and they see the world that way, it actually does work precisely that way for them. So it's like, yeah, you can like argue all day about if you think they're, you know, the power dynamic is this way or that way or however, but it's actually it's like what's if someone feels like you have a lot of power over them, then they you do. So like if yeah, if there's someone who feels like you know, me, like I'm a white male from like a first world country and stuff, and a lot of people in the room would like be projecting on me a lot of power over them. And it actually doesn't matter what I believe to be my power in that case, because it's like they're actually like experiencing the warping of the field that way. So there's also that. And also there's like a lot of unnamed thing or like unknown things I'm bringing like women who hold themselves a certain way might remind me of a of like a teacher I had like on a who like hurt me and it's like this way that like I don't even remember it really, but when
yeah,
someone acts like that it's like they have power over me or something. Yeah. I don't know.
yeah. So the clearest example of this, I think, is that I'd love to dive into is sex and romance between like facilitator and participant.
Okay, here we
This
go.
is yeah, so this is a thing that our society is like pretty unequivocal about. Like maybe it was different in the past, but now, you know, at least post Me Too, we're like, this is probably not good. You know, like it doesn't even outside of the space, right? Like a professor and student, we kind of frown on it. Like even if they get married, there's kind of like a like I don't know if that was good or not. Like did they meet on equal footing? Like, what, like you ideally, if you're getting married, if you're dating somebody, there's a sense of partnership, there's a sense of reciprocity, there's a sense of equality. And if you meet in the first place on unequal grounds, like, is that even possible? So whether or not you agree with that statement, like that is the dominant culture that we're in. And so if you want to be in a relational practice, I think you have to relate with that. Like our field of relatefulness or circling or authentic relating is in relationship with society 2025, and we can speak our authentic
Mhm.
truth and not care about the impact, and stuff's going to happen. Like organizations will dissolve because they're seen as corrupt, and so you get to do whatever you want, but so does society and the rest of the world. And
Mhm.
being unwilling to be in relationship with the expectations is just unadvisable. It just doesn't go very well.
Yeah, I like this phrase, being in relationship with the expectations. There's like a really that's like a really high level relational art. It's like there's stuff you do in the room, like word by word, sentence by sentence, and like
That's right.
movement by movement. And then there's like higher level stuff like what are the actual expectations that are alive right now? Um, and
And
what
it
are the
doesn't mean,
actual ones too? Like not
right.
just
So
the said ones.
it doesn't mean you give in to them. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're a skateboarder and there's a wall. That wall is called expectations. Do you try to bust through it? Do you ignore it and avoid it? You know, you're in relationship with it. That doesn't mean that you
Mm-hmm.
have to be subject to it.
Right, right. That's a really interesting point about power, is that you don't actually have to be subject to it. You get to be in relationship with it. And I think what a lot of us find ourselves moving into is sort of the gravitational pull of power. And then we don't really get in relation to it. We don't like you might say, like, we don't start like fucking, like being like, oh yeah, power is here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead we're like, oh fuck, power, you know. And instead of like being in the zone with it and being in flow with it, it's like it can feel, I think for a lot of people, it can feel like distasteful or forceful or oppressive.
Right.
And I think there's actually a way to be in flow with being oppressed. Like there's actually a way to be like, oh shit, I'm getting like, okay, and this is oppression, and like, okay, now how do I like work this?
Yeah, so I know we have this unfinished statement about sleeping with students, and I can
Mm,
say like how we've dealt with it, and in relation with that expectation, and kind of show how you can thread a needle. So we should come back to that. But I'm really
yeah,
excited.
yeah.
I'm gonna say some really bold things and see what happens. I'm like, this this field or set of communities that we're a part of has a bunch of shadows around power. And fundamentally, I think we as a whole are scared of it, and we're unwilling to claim it. And this makes us deeply uninfluential in making the world a better place
Mhm.
because we're scared of actually being powerful and impacting those around us. And
Right.
the irony is that then this comes out in the classic drama triangle. So if I'm oppressed, one way to get power is to be like, look at all these power dynamics. And if I'm in power, one way to hold on to it, if I'm unwilling to own it, is be like, no, that's a bullshit postmodern blah 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 frame.
Yeah, yeah.
But let's do a bunch of frame control, frame wars instead of actually getting deeply in touch right here with white right now. Like, yes, I'm extremely powerful. And I want everybody in this room to be more powerful. That's why we're doing this practice. You need it, our world needs it.
Mm. Yeah, I notice in the way that you're speaking about it, this softening opens up in me around the implication that power is bad, or like, like I think in a lot of circling type people come in with like some basic idea that power is wrong or bad, or like no one should have power in this space. It should be totally equal. It should be some way. And so if it's there, it's only to the detriment of something, when actually it's like, well, it would be really nice for circlers to have a hell of a lot more power. I would,
That's right.
like, yeah. So it's like, actually, we don't. Why are we unquestioningly looking at power as bad? That's necessarily separates you from it and like loses it for you.
It's even worse. It's necessarily hypocritical because
Mm,
that is a power move. I'm going to assert upon everyone and everything my view that power is bad. And I'm going to demand that everybody fit into my way of seeing the world.
right, right. Yeah, yeah. And what's weird is you're actually playing with this undermining form of power, where it's like,
Yeah,
I see this a lot in the discourse around it, especially like online, is people will like just be like, oh no, by saying that, you're actually perpetuating the hierarchy that, like the patriarchal hierarchy, da 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 da. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We didn't sign on to all be like with these rules that we're supposed to discuss things a certain way or approach things a certain way. Like that's all the frame that you're bringing. And so then there's like, wait, but isn't that power that you get to assert this frame, and then the people who don't follow it are the bads, and the people who do follow it are the goods? That's like, and that's not acknowledged either. There's like, oh, it's like
exactly.
everywhere you step, it's like, fuck, there's more power dynamics, and it's unacknowledged. And yeah, and it's like,
Yeah, so let's bring it in the light. Bring it in the light. Like
yeah,
I am powerful. I set rules in my space. There's things that I'll allow and that I won't allow. I'm going to stop people if they start getting physically violent, for example. Like I will not let that
Mm,
happen. That's a rule, and I'm powerful enough to make sure that doesn't happen.
yeah.
And like people who are, it might be easy to hear this and be like, look, here's these guys that are just, they're in power. They have these things, so it's easy for them to say. And I want to like speak from the other point of view too. I'm like, I 100% think that there are systemic injustices that benefit certain people, tribes, genders above others. That's just real. And I think that sucks for a lot of people. They have extra, some people are born without a leg, and then it's hard for them to be the fastest runner. Like there's a lot of people that are born into shitty situations where they have less privilege. They have less opportunities available to them. They have to work harder. And I'm like, that man, that's a real thing. And I love doing whatever I can to change those systems and make them more supportive and more equal opportunity. I
Hmm.
love using my power that way. I'm proud of it. Like the Relateful company is full of incredible female leaders, and I love backing them. Like they're some of they're the best. They're so good, and they're so easy to overlook because they don't look like charismatic, tall, big male.
Hmm.
Um, if you don't own and claim power, you can't use it to help people.
Hmm. I That last point roots us in, I think, a truth that gets back to your original, or one of the things we opened with sex with student, or
Yeah.
like and sex in general actually, and then and these spaces is that and something I notice often does not ever just get said when we're talking about the fundamentals of power is like the power differential between men and women, which often we don't just say out loud that men typically, if you have a man and a woman, the man can kill the woman, like with his bare hands. And that is a power differential. That's a power dynamic. And we can be in resistance to it, and um or like whatever relationship we want to be, but that's actually, I think, the root of a ton of power in general. Like a lot of when we talk about power, it's like go to the root of it, like who could just kill the other. If you have more money, you could probably get away with killing the guy with less money in some way, or like, if you're bigger, you're able-bodied, yeah, you're male. These are things that ultimately it's like, yeah, I could kill you, and that's the way it would be. And like that's very real. It's not, it's on some level, power is like these projections and concepts, but then there's like these really fucking real and true things in the space. And when you talk about like having sex, it's like, especially, if it's a male and a female, which it almost always is, it's like, yeah, there's a power differential. And um it's not wrong. It's beautiful. It's how made civilization is that men are this way and women are that way. But it's real. And I want to hand it off to you to like, yeah.
And there's so many complicated nuances we can add to that, and um and I don't think we should because I want to get back into the details of like in this particular practice. Like so yeah, if we can be like, look, we just need to be more honest. Like we're all very powerful in various ways. The question is not do you use power or not, it's how do you use it? And what do you use it for? Do you use it with integrity? Do you use it for love? Do you use it for truth? You use it for justice and goodness? Or do you use it in ways that harm people and make them less conscious and serve only your needs at the expense of others? Serving only your needs is fine, I think. It's maybe less good than this kind of endosymbiotic relationship, but does it your needs come at the cost of someone else?
Mm.
So this doesn't mean, again, like when I'm like, yeah, there are systemic injustices. There are like you're saying, like, look, there's a thing that most men can just they're just more powerful physically and they could kill most women. And there's other benefits that women have. What do you do with that? You don't have to give into it and be like, okay, so therefore I have to blah blah blah. You can still like forge your own path, but it's got to be in relationship. And so like the Relateful Company's way of dealing with this attraction thing, where like pure repression doesn't seem to work. The Catholic Church tried that. It doesn't end up very well. Other circling organizations have tried that, and they almost always end up, facilitators sleep with students anyway, and then they have to fire them, and there's all sorts of weird community stuff, or they don't fire them, and it's also pretty bad. Blanket libertine, like let everything happen. That's been tried before as well, and it's just as bad. There's all these questions about power that we're addressing here that we're kind of trying to address. So we're like, how do we find something in the middle? And many years ago we came up with this policy that we've refined, which is basically like, if you're a facilitator and you um, get approached by a student, you can't really approach them, but if you get approached by a student before engaging some sort of like erotic or dating or sexual kind of thing, you go through a process with a senior facilitator where you take a look at what could you be bringing to the relationship that isn't part of that. How do I say, like what are you projecting? Have you thought about like how you're bringing your mom and dad stuff here? Have you thought about the impact on the community, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And then the facilitator that that is attracted, they get to do whatever they want. The senior facilitator doesn't have the right of like refusal or approval or whatever. We get to make a strong recommendation, but then that person gets to go to the student and be like, hey, if you're really serious about this, we need to sign a document that says we're making this choice very clearly, and we hold the Relateful Company indemnified, basically. And that one thing that does is protect the Relateful Company, which is in relationship with reality, because this is a thing that happens. Organizations get canceled, they get held accountable for things that they need to be paying attention to, like this. But another thing that does, it sets the bar really high for like, there is a thing that's happening in the space where like there's a power differential. You can still play with that. You can still have fun with that. You can still go, and maybe that's what the relationship is about, and that's also fine. But you can't do that on a whim. You can't do that randomly. You can't do that while you're on the high of a weekend. You have to go through a like dedicated process. There's a speed bump that makes sure that you're really bringing a wider consciousness of impact into the decisions that you make.
Mm.
And we have had that go extremely well. We've had many, many facilitators engage that policy. We've had a handful decide not to go through with the dating. We've had a handful go through with it. We've had a couple people that didn't engage the policy, and we've had to fire. We basically suspend them for a year. We've had one that we rehired because we felt he really understood the process and the implications. So we take it super super seriously. And this to me feels like this threading the needle of like, I think we are adults. I think we are in a different atmosphere. It's not, professor student necessarily. It's it, it's not a boss and a like subordinate or something. And there's a real thing here. So like I want people to have the freedom to explore while also, putting in a speed bump and keeping everyone as safe as we can.
Something I notice right away is that you use the organization and its power as a check on individual power, which is like really, I think, structurally like a great kind of rebalancing and folding in of power. Because organizations have this kind of collective, more diffuse, but pretty fucking big power compared to an
Yeah.
individual.
Yeah.
But then also, I think like huge medicine in the process you're talking about that is often absent when sex is engaged in uh spaces where there are these kind of roles is that people just have to say out loud and to other people like, this is what's going on. And there's something to me about like whenever something is secret, that's
Yeah.
actually like a really big fucking warning sign if you're not honest about it. And like
Yeah.
especially if the relational arts are ultimately a truth telling practice,
Yeah.
then like just like are you actually being honest about like you're having sex with this person if there are people you can't tell?
Right.
That's not very honest in my book if there are people you can't tell about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there might be some sort of temporary reason for there's always weird edge
Sure.
cases, but
Sure.
yeah. Yeah, and so this brings up another thing. So for example, with attraction, a thing that I have seen a lot is that someone is like, "Oh, you're beautiful and I find you attractive," or something like that, right? Doesn't matter, male, female, male, male, like, um, and they conveniently forget to mention that they're in a monogamous relationship and have no intention of pursuing this.
Mhm.
And that hiding is sexy. It's flirtatious. There's a lot of arrows that comes from it. But it's not speaking the truth. It's not caring about the other individual. It's kind of stringing them along. And so the act of being like, "Hey, you're beautiful, and by the way, I'm not hitting on you. I'm not available for any romance." It does diffuse the energy, but and so it's like a little letdown, but you're so much more conscious and real and available. That's the real practice.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, maybe it's so clear that you don't need to say that, but almost always, like, that's a relevant detail. Like,
Yeah, right.
if I'm telling a woman that's my age or that has any inkling that I might be, like, trying to get with her, that she's beautiful or that I'm attracted to her, and I don't mention that I'm not trying to hit on her,
Yeah.
I'm, like, strategically withholding to get something from the connection.
Mm. Yeah, and withhold it like having information like that is again power. That's a power dynamic.
Yeah,
Once
yeah,
again, we
exactly.
find a power dynamic.
And so you wonder, is the attraction how much is the attraction is about person to person, and how much is it about this power dynamic that we're building?
Right. Ooh, mhm.
And that's sometimes that's what we notice in these conversations when somebody's like, "Hey, I'm attracted to this participant." They come talk to, me or Val or Bloss or Annabeth or whoever. A lot of times they realize like, "Oh, yeah, actually there's something shadowy here, and I don't want to go through with this because I'm playing out some stuff, and I'm not actually that interested in dating this person long term, and I don't want to deal with," which is also fine. They can say, "I'm not interested in dating. I want to have a fun, sexy time. We're adults. It's cool. We're gonna sign this document." Um, but like it's all clear and open. Like we've thought through it. We're trying to be as responsible and relational as we can.
Yeah. Mm.
So there's something in that I want to be like to all the people that are having conversations online saying that like leaders are abusing their power. I want to be like, you're right. Like, let's start from there. You're like, you're absolutely right. And everything that we've said so far is in addition to that. And now, how do we move forward? What do we do with that?
Mhm. Yeah. I and also, how can we make that invitation true? Something I immediately notice when I hear you say that is I believe you. But often when I see online critiques of this sort come up and the framing is I'm just trying to have a conversation,
Yeah.
a part of me thinks like uh that is being used as a diplomatic strategy
Yeah.
because if you said I'm doing this to wield a special kind of power to hurt something that I think, in a battle that I'm in,
Yeah.
If you said that, it would come off way different and it wouldn't get you the goods. So there's
Yeah.
this yeah, but I notice like we're talking and there's probably a lot to that. I'm like hearing your voice and seeing your face and I just trust you. Uh and then yeah, when I see text online and there's like really prickly stuff being brought up and then that frame is like I'm just trying to have a conversation, like I'm not trying to hurt anyone. I'm just trying to like move the community forward. It's like, why do I not believe that? What in me distrusts
Yeah.
that? And then what's the truth in the distrust, and also what is the distrust not seeing, and what's it missing? And
Yeah.
then and like and that maybe that's where for me as a person the actually having a conversation begins, and
Yeah.
actually moving from like yeah, there's power, sometimes it's abused in these spaces, that's true, and let's actually develop as circlers and develop our spaces collectively with this conversation.
I think you're also absolutely right. And like this is a lot of what we're doing in these practices is just getting more and more perspectival fluidity to say like n- not only like there's this like parenting woman, Dr. Becky Kennedy, and she's like two things are true. Like you want ice cream for breakfast and you're not going to get ice cream for breakfast and it's a bummer. And like
Mm.
we don't have to make either one wrong, you know? And we're like infinity things are true. So yeah, in this case, it's like um we for me, I often rest on the practice. So I'm like, so if someone's like, I'm just trying to move this conversation forward, um, I may in my heart be like, I don't believe that's true. I think you're trying to start a war. But then I ask myself, do I want to move this conversation forward? Let me take responsibility or claim my experience here. And if the answer is yes, I think this is an important thing that I'm going to move the conversation forward and I'm going to join with them and say, okay, great. Like it looks like there's an issue here, and here's what we're going to do about it. Uh, there's almost always middle ground. I can give an example. There was a recently a thing where at the studio there was somebody who I don't want to go into the details, and so if the two parties involved are listening to this, like I apologize for bastardizing the story. This is not the actual story. It's much more nuanced. But basically, a guy was like, trying to be a cat or something, and was like rubbing his head on different people in the space. And this one woman was like, stay the fuck away from me, and felt like really like she was about to get violated in some way. And you know, essentially what happened after that was that she felt like people weren't taking her seriously. Like the facilitators were kind of like, "Come on, this guy he wasn't actually threatening you, blah blah blah." And so when I talked to
Mm.
her, I was like, she felt like she was like both feeling like she was getting gaslit and doubting herself, like maybe I'm crazy. And I look at her and I'm like, kind of like you said, like it doesn't really matter what happened. Like in her experience, she feels threatened. Like that sucks. I don't want that to happen. If in a like I get it, like we're gonna hurt each other and blah blah blah. Like in a physical way, I just don't want anyone to feel physically threatened in spaces that I host. And I'm not making that a rule. I'm just claiming that as like something that I want. And when I'm in charge, I'm gonna do what I can to stop that from happening. So I'm like, man, I get it. That really sucks. And I don't want you to come to a place where you're trying to be like open yourself and learn how to be a better relator and you don't even know if you're physically safe. That sucks so much.
Hmm.
And so she was like, like, it feels so good to be trusted and received this way. Like you actually believe me. And I'm like 100%. Like, um, and I'm gonna go talk to that guy and figure out what's going on. And in the end of the day, I don't think that guy did anything wrong. I think he made a mistake. He was definitely not attuned to her. Anyone else that had ever spent any time with her would have known not to get that close to her. Like
Hmm.
she was broadcasting the signal, like so he had a lot to learn from it. He did make a mistake. but it wasn't like in her heart, she's like, he should be banned from the studio. And like, and I was like, I'm so sorry. Like, I believe you, your experience, like it makes sense. He made a big mistake. He needs to learn. If he can't learn, maybe he should be banned from the studio. But up until this point, he's shown only signs of openness. And and like I can't in my heart ban him from the studio. And so if that means you can't come here because you don't feel safe here, I bow to that. I respect that. And here's two other things that we need to do. Like we need to update our agreement where this is super clear because it's different being online from in person. When people sign, we added something about like that she had suggested we add. There's a couple, and we need to make people re-sign this agreement once a year so that they're like forced to reconfront like what they're signing up for.
Yeah.
So there's like real structural changes. Like I'm like, I hear you and I feel you, not just like empathetically, but I'm gonna like actually include the wisdom that you're bringing. I'm gonna move this conversation forward. I agree. You have something to offer to this community that will make us better for all future people. And I'm not gonna ban this person from the studio. And if that means we lose you, that sucks, but I'm willing to be with that.
Mm. Yeah, it feels really graceful in my system to when someone's bringing a lot of heat and pain, there's often it's easy to in a charged way sort of yeah, in a victim triangle dynamic either like really defend or really be like nah, fuck that noise. Like that's wrong. When it's like neither is listening to the
Right.
pain.
Right.
Neither is actually honoring the pain and being like, this is real. It, it's like, even if you're like really up in arms in defense, you're like, are you actually listening to the pain? Or are you like getting encoded in all of this other stuff? And like, if it's real, then it's complicated actually. And it hurts. And if it hurts, there's a lot of thorns here. It's not gonna be this simple thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
and hearing a process like that where you actually it's like that saying about a compromise where like in a good compromise, no one walks away happy. That's like, there's like this way that's true about these kinds of situations where it's like no one actually gets what they want if the truth is really dealt with and brought out. It's
Mhm.
like, yeah, I don't know. There's something there.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm a little apologetic. I'm like, I hope it's not too rambly, but I think these real situations are hopefully useful where people can say like we have this theory about power, but then like when it comes down to it, like this woman appealed to me because I'm like actually Annabeth runs the studio, like she's the head of the studio, and she does it. Like I almost never get involved with anything. Like I show up and lead Monday nights, but she does a fantastic job. And for whatever I think she might have been out of town or taking a break, but for whatever reason, like the issue came to me, like because I'm the guy in charge. And yeah, part of what we're training is the capacity to see eye to eye, to be like, look, I'm a human being and you're a human being, and I'm going to see your pain. I'm going to honor it. I'm also going to bring what's true and honor what's true for me. And part of the truth that we're both relating with is that I'm more powerful here. I get to make decisions. Um, I, she's welcome at the studio. I'm not saying that she's banned at all. I'm just acknowledging the fact that she's probably not going to come given that that guy's here and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, there's just something so important about like, well, yeah, what does it look like when you actually use your power in a way? And yeah, there's nothing easy about it.
Yeah.
Um,
On
yeah.
that last point, there's like a power asterisk thing I want to add too, where in some situations, if one person isn't banned and the other person feels like in that case they can't come, they will feel sort of banned, you know?
Totally.
And so there's this way that that can feel really unfair. You feel de facto banned because I need this person banned to feel able to enter the space. And then that feels prickly and yeah.
It really does. And this is like, yeah, part of our challenge is like you said about this kind of victim or drama triangle, whatever you want to call it, fear triangle. Um, which for those who don't know, historical roots in transactional analysis and stuff, but basically there's these scripts that people kind of run in circles of victim, perpetrator, and rescuer. And you kind of like just rotate roles, bup, bup, bup. And one of the ways out of that is to just not buy into somebody being a victim. And the nuance there is like to not buy into the victimhood while also honoring their experience of like injustice or like, yeah, like God, like what's a I don't know. I can't I never can say this well, but I think there's something really important here where I'm like, when I think about the places that I've been the most kind of taken advantage of, and maybe it really wasn't my fault. It was like there's really nothing I could do about it. I was powerless to some sort of injustice. I'm like, that really sucks. And I'm gonna nurse myself and I'm gonna be like, feel my heart and like my little child or whatever you want to call it, and just be like, oh, like, and then I need to get up and do something. And what am I gonna do? I have now that's where I'm powerful. I can perpetuate injustice. I can make that person wrong. I can keep a holy war going, and I'll be justified in it. If my family was bombed, and I now bomb the next person, like probably, my code of ethics says that's fine in some way. But I'm like, man, do we want to live in that world? Can we rise above that and just say, yeah, it's not fair, but I want to make a better world, and I'm gonna actually do it right here, right now, by acting and operating in integrity.
That is a disturbingly well said and well timed finishing note for us, Jordan. We are right at time now, and that I think is really something I'm taking away as this call, this mythic call to action around the importance of looking at power dynamics isn't just it isn't just like to have better circling events. It's like this is how you end war on some level.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's not fair that it's on the victims to end the war. It's totally not fair.
Right, right.
And that's like, okay,
And that's part of the medicine, yeah.
yeah, what are we gonna do with that? You can be unfair and perpetuate it, or you can be unfair and do your damnedest to make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else going forward.
Mhm.
Either way, it's gonna be unfair.
Yeah. Mm. Jordan, thank you for coming on The Container. How do people, get a taste of what you offer?
Yeah, right now, probably the coolest thing is I just launched this Substack where there's things that are coming out, and you'll find everything there. So if you go to jordanmallen.substack.com, probably we
Nice.
can edit that if it's the wrong link.
I'll have it in the show notes, yeah.
Thanks. Yeah.
Awesome.
That's a good place to start. I hope this is useful. I don't know. Like I always feel like deeply, deeply inadequate in relationship to these questions. And it's just like always like man, we're doing our best in the moment, and ideally humble enough to be like, yep, we fucked up again. And we're gonna make choices that we don't know for sure. As leadership in charge, like we're gonna do what we can to do the best thing. And it's tough and it's not obvious. And it's even when it's obvious to other people, it's not obvious inside.
Yeah. Mm. Well, thank you for the work, man. Thank you for the work and for this perspective.
Likewise.
Oh, with that, the container is now closed. Keep it namaste.